They had a pretty good show the other day on Prophecy in the News. They had L.A. Marzulli on there, and they're talking about some really important, interesting stuff. So I wanted to bring it to you, and I hope everyone enjoys it and can hear the truth in it and understand things that are coming. So let's give it a listen.
Well, it's always a pleasure to welcome L.A. Marzulli to Prophecy in the News, and he's come bearing a new DVD. L.A., welcome back to
Great to be here, Gary.
It's always good to have you, because you have a way of looking at life from a biblical perspective, and yet you see some things that maybe other people might miss. What's going on today?
Well, I appreciate that. Well, in Watchers 3, it's called Fingerprints of the Supernatural. And here in the Western world, the supernatural is sort of almost a taboo subject. Even though we believe in what happened in the Bible, the miracles of the Bible, Moses parting the Red Sea, Jesus walking on water, when it really comes to the supernatural manifesting in today's world, most people, well, that doesn't really happen today. And yet what we see, and we try to show this in Watchers 3, we believe that there are events happening on the planet right now which talk and show us in graphic terms that the supernatural is in fact manifesting.
Absolutely. Now, we read in the Bible, several places in the New Testament alone, that tell us about signs in the sun, moon, and stars as we reach that critical period prior to Christ's return. We have seen a number of solar phenomena. I don't know whether you're aware of this. Well, I should say I know you are. But the sun has been acting peculiarly for several years now. And people have been watching solar terrestrial emissions, the coronal mass ejections and all kinds of strange phenomena. And then there have been comets plunging into the sun.
Sure.
And photographs of that actually having taken place. And then we remember Comet Ellen. And people are just sensitized right now to things in the heavens. And you've been watching the sun too.
And what's interesting about that, with all the CMEs and Comet Ellen and comets crashing into the sun and all sorts of phenomena that's happening out there, meanwhile, here on Earth, people are photographing what appears to be two suns in the sky, which begs the question, how can that possibly be? And yet, some of these are lens flare, some of them are caused by reflections off of windows and mirrors, we get all that. But there's several of them that appear to be real. There's something up there that's next to the sun, which is a luminous object.
And not only two suns, or what appear to be two suns, but also there are objects that appear to be close to the sun.
Yes.
And we now have incredibly sophisticated satellites in orbit that can actually shoot movies of things circulating around the sun where we might have missed it in times past. But on your video, you show objects that even show signs of reflectivity close to the sun. Now, what's going on here?
Well, we really don't know. But what we postulate is this, that NASA seems to be redacting the images, and they do it over and over and over again. But there are some images which leak through. One in particular that Standeo addresses in Watchers 3. There's a black spot which comes like this and goes around the back of the sun and then reappears about 2 days later. In Standeo's words, whatever this thing is, it's moving very fast.
Now, Standeo is a Christian. He's a scientist as well. The man actually, I think, is quite brilliant.
He is, absolutely.
And a mathematician, and has observed these phenomena. And you have quite a conversation in the video. I've been privileged to watch the video, and believe me, you're going to have some awakenings. Standeo is talking about this. You used the term redaction a minute ago. That's a fancy word for censorship. If you cover something,
blacking out the images with a black magic marker or whatever.
Yeah. And why would they be doing that?
It's a really good question, and there's NASA never a straight answer, but we've looked into it with our limited resources, and we have no answer to that other than it appears to be that there is a deliberate obfuscation or redaction of what is appearing from the solar satellites.
And so something is happening out there, folks. And of course, LA has already mentioned certain lunar phenomena in a previous video.
Watchers too, sure.
Now, some of the happenings that are going on today have actually been mentioned in the Torah. And you have a segment on the Torah codes and the experts in Torah codes. Now, there are all kinds of people out there that claim to be experts, but there are a few who really are. And you've managed to interview a couple who really seem to know what they're talking about.
Well, Professor Rips, Glaverson, or Rabbi Rips and Rabbi Glaverson, Professor Haralick, all weigh in on the Torah codes. And Torah codes 101 is just simply this, that years ago you would count, let's say in the book of Genesis, and you would skip 50 letters and skip another 50 letters and do this with your finger. And what it would spell out would be Torah. And then you would go, let's say, to Deuteronomy and work backwards, right? So you now have 49 letters and it spells Torah. In the book of Leviticus, you skip 8 letters and it gives the name of the unspeakable name of Hashem, I am that I am. And that begs the question, is it just coincidence or is it something more? Again, fingerprints of the supernatural. Why I look at the Torah codes, it's like they should never in any way supersede the plain text that's there.
Absolutely.
For everyone to read. I do find them interesting, and we have uncovered, Professor Rips and Glaverson and Haralick have discovered some unbelievable codes.
Well, give us an example of some of the things they've uncovered. And by the way, they do appear in Watchers 3, and along with the method of obtaining these codes, which you'll find most fascinating.
A very tight matrix. This is found over the plain text. Twin Towers, Bin Laden, cursed is he, and the number of the dead, which is from the plain text,
Really?
where Moses is out with the children of Israel after in the Exodus, okay? And it says 3,000 were killed that day, where Dathan and the ground opens up and swallows them. That the number, in other words, the Torah codes tallied up the dead before we tallied up the dead. It was already in the Torah codes. Twin Towers, Bin Laden, cursed is he, and then 3,000 dead. Unbelievable.
All the way back to Maimonides, and perhaps before, Jewish intellectuals were saying that everything is written in the 5 books of Moses. Everything past, present, and future. All that ever was, all that is, and all that ever will be is written in the Torah. And people thought that was sort of a Jewish metaphor. They don't really mean that. It's just that's kind of a nice sentiment about the books of Moses. We're learning that maybe that was true all along.
And what's interesting is when Christianity sort of uncoupled itself from Judaism in AD 70, when Titus came down and destroyed Jerusalem, that really severed that relationship.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, we miss, because we've been uncoupled, we miss all of that. We no longer have access to it. And what's great about Fingerprints of the Supernatural, what we try to do in the Watchers series, is we sit down with different rabbis and discuss some of these things, and it's just fascinating at some of the answers that they come up with.
Well, the Middle East right now is a hotbed of activity, and you have a segment devoted to the Middle East, and I don't even know how you can cover everything that's happening in the Middle East right now. It's like a tightly wound spring over there, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is. The Middle East is the place to watch, in my opinion. Most of prophecy, specifically in the latter days, concerns Israel. It's the time of Jacob's trouble, not the time of Fred's trouble. And this is where we're going.
How true.
Recently, with the Arab Spring, we see country after country. And what's amazing about this, country after country toppling, and now Israel is at the position where it doesn't know within a 24-hour period who it is that they are dealing with. A perfect example of this is Egypt cutting off the pipeline, I think for the 3rd time, and they're not going to reconnect it. And Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in the north, the constant saber rattling, the shelling, the sorties that fly over, and then of course you've got, in my opinion, the hot button is Syria. Assad will not back down. Well over 3,500 people have been slaughtered. We show very graphic pictures of this, extremely graphic pictures, which are posted on YouTube. And we do it not for shock value. We do it to show what is going on. It's time to wake up. Remember, after the Holocaust, they showed the pictures of the concentration camps. It's the same thing. The brutality is unspeakable that is happening in Syria. American people need to understand that this is happening in real time. Get away from Dancing with the Stars, with all due respect, and the nonsense that's on some of the television shows, and look at what's happening in this world. Syria may become the hot button, which will ignite the war in the Middle East, the coming war in the Middle East.
You make a very good point. Western media have been ignoring this. They've covered the upper echelon stories, some of the sensational stuff, but they leave out the real meaning behind the stories. And so the Western reader doesn't really find out what's going on over there, which very much affirms Bible prophecy for the latter days. It's almost like reading prophecy to watch the Middle East.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's like looking at Ezekiel 38 and Ezekiel 39, those two chapters which talk about that confederacy of nations which come up against the land of unwalled villages. Israel is a land of unwalled villages. There are no walls around Tel Aviv. There is a fence to keep the Palestinians out of Jerusalem. I get that, okay?
Yeah.
But it's still an unwalled city. And what we see is the stage, in my opinion, is being set for the Ezekiel 38-39 war. This thing is screaming at us. It's looming on the horizon, and yet most people are distracted with 2012. Look over here, why the real stuff is happening in the Middle East right under our noses.
Now, before we run on too far into the area of the news, your video also starts out with a phenomenal story you've been covering, but you've got a lot more of it now, and this involves a doctor by the name of Dr. Roger Lear, and you've been talking about a strange subject if you've never heard it before, but believe me, after you've heard it for a while, it's no longer strange. It has to do with people who claim to have been implanted with strange little implants. Commonly, you find these under the terminology alien implants. Well, you go straight to the source about this, and I think you've done some of the most amazing work.
Appreciate that.
In this new video.
What's amazing is, first of all, for the skeptic out there, these people that have these things removed don't want any notoriety. They're not getting paid. They just want them out. The surgeon who was conducting the operations was a total skeptic. In fact, when he was told about this the first time, he got up and walked out of the room. He had to be coerced back in, sort of. And he figured, well, it must be a BB or a piece of wire or whatever. He performed the operation. Much to his surprise, he found an object. And the object, there was a secretion over the object which he could not cut with a scalpel. What we find now, this is his 16th implant removal. And remember, these people claim to be abducted by these small little gray aliens. Of course, we both believe that these are not aliens, not extraterrestrials. These are, in fact, the work of the fallen one. It's the work of Satan. Can't say it any plainer than that. But it's part of what's coming, this great deception that is coming. To cut to the chase, he took this implant out, and he took it to a machine shop to try to cut it open. The machine shop, the hardest file that they have, couldn't put a groove in it, number one. They took a diamond-bladed saw, couldn't make a dent in it. They then took this small little implant to another laboratory, and they cut this thing open with a laser beam. Inside, they find carbon nanotubes, and this little chip, whatever it is, and whoever's ever making it, is running what we believe may be a clock speed of 300 gigahertz. Our fastest computer on the planet is 3.5 gigahertz. This thing is running almost 300 times, or 100 times faster, rather, than anything we have on this planet. It is, in fact, a supercomputer, in my opinion, and let me put it this way. I asked Dr. Roger Lear, I said, Dr. Lear, what do you think this thing is? Now, he's got no Nephilim dog in the hunt, no end-time eschatological dog in the hunt. And his answer was just simply this: changing the person's DNA, just like that. I think it's changing the person's DNA. And I was taken completely aback by that statement.
Well, let's pause for a moment. I want to tell folks how they can get this DVD, but you've raised an incredible question. If what you say is true, there are implications behind this. What's
Very
going on?
much so.
And we need to talk about that. But first, let me say that we have this wonderful DVD by L.A. Marzulli. It is called Watchers 3, Fingerprints in the Supernatural, and it's yours for just $19.95. Now, we also offer two other DVDs. If you don't have these, you really need them all. The Watchers, this is part 1. The Watchers part 2, Signs in the Heavens and the Earth. Watchers part 3, and each of these is $19.95. However, I think what you should do is get all three, and we're going to make you maybe one of the most special offers we've ever made here at Prophecy in the News. Just call and ask for the Watchers Trilogy package. You get all 3 DVDs for $59.95, and in the process, you get a free 1-year subscription to our magazine, Prophecy in the News. By the way, 48 pages. This magazine is loaded with prophecy studies, Bible studies, and a catalog of the best prophecy publications available today. You get that free. You'll also get free another DVD, which was made right here in this studio. I, along with Tom Horn and L.A., I'll never forget that day. We sat here and we discussed things like human genetics. We discussed the Nephilim. We discussed UFOs, crop circles, cattle mutilations, genetic tampering, all sorts of things. We had a great time.
It was quite a time.
It was a sort of a once-in-a-lifetime event. You get the magazine and you get Alien Agenda along with the 3 DVDs for $59.95. You can't beat it. Just call and ask for the Watchers Trilogy package. I want to make sure I get this right because we don't want to confuse anybody. The Watchers Trilogy package, yours for $59.95 plus shipping and handling. And now, let's go back to the point that a point of interest that I mentioned a moment ago. If all this is true, you've got the implants, you've got testimony of people who are scientists, basically. What does this mean? Who's putting the implant in there, and what do they expect to gain, etc.?
Well, it takes a minute to download the information. And I actually talk about this in the new book, The Cosmic Chess Match. But basically it's this. We're told in the book of Revelation that men will not be able to buy, sell, or trade. We all get that. We all look at, let's say, digital angel and go, could be the mark of the beast.
Yeah.
This is something that's so far beyond that, because in Revelation we get the scriptures which tell us, number one, that anyone who takes this mark immediately, the buy, sell, or trade thing we get, but anyone who takes this mark, there's judgment there. And the judgment is they are immediately thrown into the lake of fire, which really seems harsh. And it is harsh, unless there's something else going on. A little further in the book of Revelation we read that men will seek death in those days and not find it. Could the two somehow be connected, like Psalm 22 and Isaiah 53? No one ever thought to overlay those two scriptures. But when we overlay those scriptures, we see it's talking about the same event, the crucifixion. Could it be that you won't be able to die in those days? Men and women will seek death and not find it, because this implantable chip, which enables you to buy, sell, or trade, will in fact do 2 things. It will extend your lifespan 500 years, disease-free, perhaps, and it changes your DNA so that you become Gibborim, as Tom Horn would say, or as I would call it, Nephilim. And that would figure into 2 things. It makes us understand why the judgment is so severe and the finality of that judgment. And it also ties back into Matthew 24, where Yeshua, Jesus, tells us it will be like the days of Noah. And what differentiates those days of Noah from any other time, in my opinion, in all of history, is the presence of the sons of God, the Neo Elohim, the fallen angels, messing with the genetics, creating the Nephilim. It's here, in my opinion.
And our own scientists are now able to manipulate genes.
Sure.
As though all of this has waited for a certain moment in history to happen at once. So it's no longer unbelievable if I should say something is modifying your genetics. It's perfectly believable that someone else would be doing it.
Why not?
Because our scientists are doing it. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I think that may have some detrimental qualities, but that's another story, which we could talk about. Genetically modified fruits and vegetables and livestock and so forth and so on. Heaven only knows what the outcome of that will be. In Watchers 3, it's kind of fascinating. We think of Bible prophecy as being the most lucid, the most sensible way to study prophecy, but there are other people out there studying prophecy too. There are pagan students of prophecy. You mentioned some of those, the Inuit, the Hopi Indians, in Watchers 3. Talk about some of the things that they are predicting.
What's amazing is the Inuit, who are indigenous people around the Arctic Circle and north part of Alaska. Unlike us here in the West, where we get our food by going to the market and we drive cars and all this stuff, the Inuit people are very in tune to the land. The slightest change in anything, because their survival depends on them being in tune with their surroundings. The Inuits say, sun is wrong, and this is a direct quote, sun is wrong, moon is wrong, stars are wrong, wind is wrong, and the snow drifting is wrong. Now they're telling us this for the first time. They stated it publicly. We have it in Watchers Free, Fingerprints of the Supernatural. Why are the Inuits alarmed at what's going on? They've never seen it like this. So you've got indigenous people who, when they wake up in the morning, they look up. They don't, hit the coffee maker and read the morning paper. They come out of wherever they are and they look up and they survey their surroundings and look at the day. And what kind of a day is this? Look where the placement of the sun is. Feel the wind. Because they're about to go out into this environment. They're in tune with nature, not like we are. And they are giving us a warning, which I believe is very dire, talking about everything has changed. It's not like it used to be. Fingerprints of the Supernatural.
Most interesting indeed. So people who are sensitive to nature then are sensitive to change. And it's fascinating. The Bible does talk about changes in the natural world in the latter days. It talks about floods. The floods shall lift up their heads. You see that phrase in Scripture several times concerning latter day events. And you document some of that. There has been rather abnormal flooding and earthquakes, by the way.
Sure.
We here in Oklahoma have become sensitive to earthquakes, having had some big shakes around here, which is unusual for us. And people are coming to me, L.A., and saying, is this a biblical sign of the end? Well, what can I tell you? Jesus mentioned earthquakes in diverse places as a sign, and if Oklahoma isn't a diverse place, I don't know what is.
And let me add to that. What's amazing about this is when Yeshua Jesus writes that prophecy or speaks that prophecy almost 2,000 years ago, there's no way to track any of this before the modern era. In other words, if I lived in London, let's say, 300 years ago, and there was an earthquake in Oklahoma, I wouldn't know about it. Now, my USGS and my disaster alerts and everything else gives me anything over 6.0. It's right there. So for the first time in all of history, we are linked and synced up together. We can track the birth pains.
And here's a little aside for you people who watch Prophecy in the News. We're located in Oklahoma City. About 40 miles east of here is a little fault. And the name of this fault, and I'm looking here in our local newspaper, it's called the Wilzetta Fault. Now, nobody's ever heard of the Wilzetta Fault. Guess how many earthquakes were in the Wilzetta Fault in the year 2010? 200. We had 200 earthquakes in the year 2010. We have already had close to 100. One of them, early November, was magnitude 5.6. And I have to tell you, it was the loudest noise I've ever heard. My house shaking. And we were nowhere near the epicenter. That is, it's like 50 miles east of here. I wouldn't want to be on the epicenter. Now, this is highly unusual. What could have caused it? What could have caused the earthquake in Washington, D.C.? If you remember that, and you include that, by the way, in your DVD, what's the implication there?
Again, I'm going on a limb here, but there could be, and we looked at seismographs, and it's in an earthquake, the tremors start like this, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger. This is like, bam, it's like one event. And some people postulate that there was an underground nuke. Is it a test? Is it an explosion? Was there some sort of an underground battle? We don't know. There's no way to vet this. What we do know is that this earthquake was sort of unprecedented and very unusual for that region of the United States. And shortly thereafter, this gigantic sinkhole opened up in Virginia. Are the two somehow connected? We don't know.
Is God speaking to man?
I think he is.
Is he sounding
loudly and clearly?
Yeah, I think that's the general tenor of LA's DVD, Watchers 3. God is kind of raising our consciousness a little bit. He's saying, okay, it's time to sort of look my way, folks, because big things are about to happen. And listen, when I watch Watchers 3, I'm convinced that big things are about to happen. Earthquakes. We are constantly these days assailed with food crises and food scares and famines, and people talking about not being able to obtain some vital supplies and so forth. That's another warning that Jesus gave us. Famines for the last days.
And this is what really touched off the Arab Spring. Most people aren't aware that the rise of commodities, food prices in Tunisia, sparked the riots. This man couldn't afford to feed his family on $3 a day, and he set himself on fire in desperation. From that, the whole thing blew up, no pun intended, into the Arab Spring, and this is what we see happening all
Well, the
around
Arab Spring may become a nuclear winter.
Yes. Unfortunately, it looks like we're headed that direction.
Yeah, it's very sad what's happening, but you need to be attuned to what the Bible says about the latter days, and this will help. It's called Watchers 3, Fingerprints of the Supernatural, years for 1995 plus shipping and handling. But, as I said earlier, we have maybe one of the best deals we've ever offered you here at Prophecy in the News, because we have Watchers 2, his previous DVD, to go with this, and The Watchers, the original DVD. But if you buy these 3 DVDs for $59.95, and by the way, we're offering these to you under the name the Watchers Trilogy Package, the Watchers Trilogy Package, for $59.95, the bonuses will make it highly worth your while. You get a free subscription to Prophecy in the News for a year, and, by the way, you get the Alien Agenda, which was made right here in the studio. I made it along with Tom Horn and L.A. Marzulli. We kind of had a freewheeling discussion of some of these events, and I think we got into places that none of us
Very interesting day.
Yeah, it was very interesting. We got into some places that we maybe didn't intend to go, but listen, it was the leading of the Lord, and this is very informative. Alien Agenda, yours absolutely free. Prophecy in the News for a year, absolutely free when you order this, the Watchers Trilogy Package by L.A. Marzulli for $59.95 plus shipping and handling. 1-800-475-1111 is the number, and just call that number and we'll speed this package to you. And believe me, you want to keep track of prophecy, and that's what we do in our magazine, Prophecy in the News. Yours free for a whole year when you order the Watchers Trilogy Package. L.A., we've got about a minute left. What are you watching now?
We're actually talking about doing Watchers 4, which will be sort of an expose on the Nephilim. And it's a rebuttal to the History Channel's Ancient Aliens program, with all due respect to them, and other paradigms which are being promulgated. So we're going to start working on that pretty soon. Richard Shaw and myself.
Well, the message is the time is growing short. If you don't know the Lord Jesus Christ, you need to avail yourself of His saving grace. Ask Him to come into your life. He loves you. He'll come. He'll save you. If you don't know how to pray or don't know how to ask Jesus to come into your life, my advice is look up a Bible-believing Christian, and he'll be more than happy to lead you to the Lord. Right, L.A.?
Amen.
All right. It's been great having you here.
Great to be here, Gary.
L.A. Marzulli, I'm Gary Stearman, and keep you.
Well, you heard that last little bit. The next thing Marzulli will be working on is a rebuttal to the ancient aliens and their aspect of, well, what the show's pretty interesting sometimes, but they always question whether there's a supreme creator or whether it's just ancient humans mistook space travelers, more advanced than them, as gods. So we'll see him rebut that. It should be pretty good, is what I'm thinking. Well, I hope you enjoyed their show today, what I showed you today. Let's see, that was December the 9th, I believe. Yeah. Fingerprints of the Supernatural. Well, you can always come to their site. It's just prophecyinthenews.com, and you can see what current shows they've got listed, and go into the archives and page through there and find something that interests you. They have some pretty good guests, and the discussion is really pretty good, usually, always. They can help you to understand some things and hopefully bring you closer to the Lord. And you also heard mention of two suns and whatnot. Well, there are pictures out there. Interesting pictures. Some are not. Not real pictures, they look good, but there's an explanation for them. Some are not. And objects, they were talking about comets and whatnot. Things don't look right. So you're getting more than just us YouTubers. You're getting mainstream. You're getting brilliant minds and everything. They have great knowledge in all these subjects. And they're given a thumbs up verification that we're in that time. Well, Christmas is coming up, even though we're in that time. And I hope everybody enjoys the holiday. Be thankful for everything that you've had, everything that you have. I'd like to say thank you, Leslo, for putting in your video about asking people for prayers for my nephews and such. That was very nice, and I do appreciate that. I appreciate each and every one of you that have prayed and sent me your messages. I will close this out tonight. I looked over the earthquakes before I came on, and it didn't look like anything really big. There were mainly some 4s. So if I'd seen anything, as you know by now, that looked like we needed to pay attention more than usual, I would have brought that out. We seem to be lulled, so to speak, for the moment, and that's good. We didn't get the snow, thank goodness. Sorry for the people that did get a lot of it, and that will get moisture and snow and everything out of it. And before I go, I about forgot. When they show their videos and offer a package to make money to support their station and their program, I'm not putting this up here to help these guys make any sales, or me. I'm putting it up here for the information contained within the show. And then if you get interested enough and you want to buy a book or whatever to have it to where you can refer to it more than one time and have it in your possession, well, then you have the opportunity. But as far as that goes, it's just the information of the show. So I'll let everyone go. It's about, well, it's getting kind of late, a little bit late. It's about 3:15 a.m. On Wednesday morning. So as I was saying, I hope Christmas turns out well for everyone, and be thankful for everything that we've had and that we do have, and just be glad that we made it to see another one, and look forward to hopefully seeing another one and another one and another one. But in case it doesn't work that way, enjoy all the special times throughout these holidays. Some people are going to be alone, and if you know anybody that is, well, maybe you could swing by, pay them a surprise visit, spread a little cheer, put a smile on their face or something. That's if you know anyone. And even if you don't, maybe there's something you can do somewhere. It's just a thought. A Christmas thought. I wish everyone the best. Good night. God bless. and I'll talk to you soon.